Open the Budget Committee for the Housing Authority, which includes all of the BC members and Ann Leenstra, Resident Commissioner. Hello, Ann, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Thank you very much for attending. I will now ask H3S Director Rodney Cook for the staff presentation.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Rodney Cook. I'm the Interim Director, Health, Housing, Human Services. With me today to help present is Executive Director Jill Smith and the Finance Director Jason Kirkpatrick. So just want to say a little bit, just the way we're structured a little bit differently, where HAC is a component of H3S. And so as we present to you today, we'd just like you to keep that in mind as we go through it, and we'll just go from there. And so that I'll turn it over to Jill, and she can get us kicked off.
Good afternoon, Budget Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. This is the first time the Housing Authority has been recognized as a component unit formally through this process, and we appreciate the opportunity. Thank you, Elizabeth. I want to start out with our major accomplishments, which is the next slide. The first one that I want to focus on is the fact that the Housing Authority this past year received $1.3 million from Kaiser and HealthShare. And it was a really exciting accomplishment to have them invest in rent assistance, specifically for seniors who were homeless and disabled. So that's who we were authorized to assist. And the name of this program was Metro 300. The reason HealthShare and Kaiser named it that is because we did it regionally across the metro region. Each housing authority and each county partnered to serve a certain number of seniors that were homeless. And we all signed releases of information with the folks that were serving them as well as the people being served so that we could share their data and learn about health impacts and community impacts and cost reductions related to these folks being housed. We were able to be highly successful in this program, and rather than house 80, we have housed 120 seniors who are disabled that were homeless. So very huge success. We've learned a lot. The problem with this program is Kaiser and HealthShare provided enough funding for a year. So this program in specific is one that we intended to move folks onto the Supportive Housing Measure program when it ends in the end of June. We received several new awards of vouchers, rent assistance dollars from HUD this year, some in some really exciting new programming. One is called the Foster Youth Initiative. It's term-limited 5-year funding for youth aging out of foster care who are homeless. Over 90% of youth who age out of foster care end up homeless. And this program I really like because oftentimes if people aren't disabled or elderly, they just need a short infusion of rent assistance to go to school or get a job or training and then move on. Most of the HUD programs are not created that way. So this one was kind of a test. We've got all of our vouchers full. We're getting more. And I'm really hopeful to see these kids transition into stability and off of assistance. Affordable housing development. We are a pass-through agency for the Metro Affordable Housing Bonds. We were able to award $44 million, which will result in 413 units of housing being developed. 153 of those units will be reserved for households earning 30% or less of area median income. As you know, this is housing that would not be accessible to anyone earning that little otherwise. And then our last major accomplishment for this year, it's been a busy year, is Hillside Manor, substantial rehabilitation. Hillside Manor is the largest building in Clackamas County. It's public housing. It serves primarily seniors that are disabled and all extremely low income, very vulnerable folks. Hillside Manor was approved by HUD to transition out of public housing, and they're now part of a tax credit partnership. They are managed by a third-party property management company, and the building is under substantial rehab to be completed this summer, and it's going really well. It's going to be beautiful, and we'll have you all come and check it out soon. Moving on to the next slide. Performance Clackamas results measures. Housing stability measure is one that we've always maintained well above 90%. These are folks that remain housed after we've initially placed them. We are no longer monitoring that one and have selected a different measures, so that's why you see an NA on the 21-22 target. Our development project pipeline continues to move forward with the help of the Metro Housing Bonds, and we have almost 1,300 units somewhere in the pipeline that are affordable right now, counting those that we've recently completed. So we are on target to keep moving forward and meet the board's goals. If we move on to revenue and expenses, is that where we are? Nope, I skipped one, I'm sorry. Program profile 2021-22 summary. In our current performance Clackamas structure, our MFR structure, the Housing Authority was designated a program within Housing and Community Development. So it's viewed as a line of business within that designation. Housing Authority staff expenses are expected to require about 10% of overall funding. And over half of our measures are above target. And I just wanted to elaborate. As you look at the charts that Jason's going to show you next, you'll see that the majority of our funding is pass-through funding. Whether it's a housing choice voucher, rent that goes out into the community for landlords, Metro affordable housing development bonds, those are pass-throughs, supportive measure funding. So the entity primarily, for the most part, for most of our funding, acts as a contracting entity. And we have like 1,000 landlords that we have contracts and partnerships with. So this is a kind of a natural extension of what we do now. Jason?
Next slide, please. So this is just a graphical representation of our revenues and expenses for the upcoming year. Those of you who have seen this chart in the past will recognize that a larger portion of it is local funds. So the Metro bond funds and the Metro, or the expected Metro supportive housing funds, make up almost 2/3 of that revenue chart. In the past, our Section 8 program has been our largest program alongside our public housing and local projects. Mirroring that, as Jill mentioned, we're a pass-through organization. So much of that Metro funding you'll see is going out as bond funds over the next year or two, as well as the supportive housing pass-through funds and housing assistance payments through the voucher program. Next slide, please. There's a lot of data up here. We try to break it down by our various revenue sources as well as expenses. So I'll just quickly go down the list. Our dwelling rent is primarily from our local projects and our public housing. Public housing is set at 30% of a person's income. You'll see that there's a noticeable decrease over the years as that kind of goes down. There's two factors weighing in on that. One is the movement of Hillside Manor out of public housing and into a LIHTC property. And also just folks lost income this year. So 30% of zero is zero. That really reduced it. And we're expecting that to kind of start coming back as the economy opens up. Operating subsidies are HUD dollars restricted to either public housing, and those public housing operating funds can only be used on public housing properties, or Section 8, and that's in the administration of the Section 8 program. Our housing assistance payments, as Jill mentioned, we're getting new vouchers. Our pool of Section 8 vouchers is fairly constant, but they're putting out a lot of new and enhanced vouchers, whether it be mainstream, veterans vouchers, the emergency assistance vouchers. All those we're expecting to see an increase over the year. Grant revenue is primarily our capital fund. So HUD has two pieces for public housing. One is an operating subsidy to operate the properties, and then there's a capital fund. As you'll recall, HUD has a hard time maintaining funding on that, so we just use that grant to maintain our properties. The next two lines, the Metro Supporting Housing Bond Funds, and then the Metro Bond Funds and Metro Supportive Housing Funds are those pass-through dollars. So our expectation is for this fiscal year 22, we'll receive $34 million for the Metro Bond Funds to kick off those projects, and then the expected Metro Supportive Housing Funds of 24.5. You'll see a pretty sharp increase as we move down to expenses and personal services. That's in the standing up of the supportive housing measure. We are a fairly small agency, approximately 44 staff, full-time employees. We're expecting to grow to approximately 70 as we're projecting out the need for this. There's a lot of contract dollars that go out, and that's our expectation of what will happen with those. Alongside that, there's a little bit of material and services increase. That includes our public housing, so the cost of materials that we've seen an increase, as well as just the staffing. And then housing assistance payments, it kind of mirrors the increase there.
I see your hand.
I have a question on this slide. When was this budget prepared?
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Said, when was this budget prepared? This page 6.
About 6 weeks ago. So a lot of this information has changed, especially around the supportive housing measure, but this is what we were, at that point in time, this is what we had.
Okay.
I'm going to ask the commissioners to wait on those comments. I know what you're saying, Commissioner Savas, until they complete their presentation.
Okay. All right. Next slide, please.
So our department summary by fund, as you can see, there's little to no general fund that comes to the Housing Authority. Historically, the Housing Authority has paid, what is it called? The public housing.
So payment in lieu of taxes
Payment in
on
lieu
our
of
public housing properties, we pay 10% of our rents as, instead of paying property taxes, we paid payment in lieu of taxes pilot as required by HUD. Or we still do pay that, yes, but we've got it reimbursed from the county.
And then there was just I guess this was a historical agreement to just exchange that. So that is what we received from the county. And next slide. Significant policy and/or financial issues. The two that I chose to highlight are the fact that we have aging public housing stock, which the board's very well aware of, with inadequate funding to retain and maintain those structures. We need to prioritize the need to work with our Housing Authority Board and develop policy and a plan for the repositioning and redevelopment of our public housing portfolio this coming year. And then another significant policy and financial issue is the fact that we are administering the Metro Affordable Housing Bond Program, and we have all these new units coming online. We have a real opportunity to align the supportive housing measure funding to ensure that as those new units are developed, they serve some of our most vulnerable residents, those that we're serving with the measure funding. So that alignment of that is in our plan and is a priority. And that is the end of our presentation.
Thank you. What is troubling to me, I know Commissioner Savas and maybe other commissioners as well, is we have the Metro bond funds at $34 million plus and the Metro supportive housing at $24 million plus. And as you know, we received information that this year and probably the next year that we will not get monies anywhere close to that. I don't see how this Board of County Commissioners can approve this budget with those details in it unless there's something I don't know. But for me, budgets are real. This board is meeting today at 3:30 in an emergency policy session meeting to discuss what we want to do with that. Now, Gary, I don't see how we can approve this budget with those numbers at this time.
Yes, so that's an excellent point. So, You know, we're doing this differently this year. Normally, they go before a business meeting in June, and you don't have a pre-meeting like this, so that will still occur.
And it's no fault to staff. I mean, this obviously, like, Commissioner Savas asked, this was prepared months in advance, or, I don't know, weeks in advance, but we have some new information. Commissioner Fisher?
Yeah, so I have a question. From what I understand, the actual amount of money that will be received this fiscal year is substantially more for the Metro Homeless Services measure, but it will be arriving in the third quarter. Is that true?
The memo that we received from Metro just in the last week gives us their best estimate based on other taxes that are similar, and it is a higher projection than what they'd given us before. Before, it was 24.2 million. This fiscal year now, it is 32.2. However, they do project receiving that the very last quarter, so April, May.
Okay.
A
I
year
just
from
wanted
now.
to make sure that
Yep.
it is projected that we will receive the money this fiscal year.
Commissioner Fisher, please. We have received some new information on internal discussions that have been going on this morning. I'm going to ask this board that we do not approve this budget until our 3:30 meeting when we will get together and share all the information that has been gathered. I am not willing at this point to think for 1 minute that we're going to get that type of money when the tax collections are what, Elizabeth Comfort? What are the tax collections coming in July 1st?
We don't know yet. Metro's received April's, is the only month that has come in, and they received $500,000.
$500,000. And it's because it's the nature of the beast. It's an employment taxes that are paid quarterly. And some of these taxes don't even start to collect until January of 2022. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, when I first put my card up, I just wanted to, a lot of new numbers. I mean, this morning I heard it was $30,000 that they had acquired. Now it's $500,000. But I mean, even if the money does come, what, spring? Is that what we're talking about? The 32 million now? I mean, that's news to me. I haven't heard that yet. But even if that does come, we can't push that out in 2 or 3 months. How do you do that? So I agree that we can't approve this budget. We need some more accurate numbers. I want to approve the budget, but this is a lot of money, and I'm more confused in the last 15 minutes than I was an hour ago.
I understand
About how
there's
much
an
money?
audit coming.
Well, the plan is, once this is rolled out in the next couple of years, Metro will do an audit on the collections to verify that the businesses, because this is an income tax, that the taxes are being collected appropriately and throughout all 3 counties.
I hear there might be an audit in 2 weeks.
I'm not aware of that audit.
Okay, I will follow up on that information before I come into the 3:30 Budget Committee meeting, our committee meeting today. As much as I would like to say we're going to have all this money in the budget, we can't approve it. Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, I just wanted to make one clarification. The Metro Support Services measure is not an employment tax. It is a personal income tax, and the tax on business profits of businesses over $5 million in revenue. So that's just important for the record.
Well,
because
I'm
there's
sure-
a lot of confusion about that.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you're right on that. But, profits, holy cow, we're in the midst of COVID, people. We're getting 40 million of the ARP money in, and we have too many businesses to even give the folks who aren't making, I don't know, the math isn't adding up, people. We don't know what's real. We don't know who's on first. We don't even know how many businesses out there make over $500,000 anymore in Clackamas County. We haven't even surveyed that yet. So what I'm going to do is we're going to not pass this budget today. I'm going to adjourn this meeting.
Chair?
Yes?
Yeah, one other question, before you adjourn, just one other question. Go
You
ahead and
bet.
finish.
Go ahead.
So, just going down to the next line, the 34 million, Do we actually, on the Metro bond and the housing bond, the sticks and bricks bond, do we actually expect to see that flow in, 34 million flow in this fiscal year?
So those will flow out when those projects kick off. There are two major projects that are still on the table. I think one already began. That was the one that was over off of 205. I can't recall the name of it right now, but that one's, we've actually already received the Metro bond funds and passed those through to the developer. And these two projects are expected to go in the next fiscal year.
So there will be a call for that much money?
Yes.
Correct. And that will be approved, yeah.
Yeah, so when the financial closing occurs for those projects, we then get that money and just pass it through to the project.
Okay, and which two projects are they again?
The two coming up, one would be Webster. Which one is the second one?
The Oregon City project, I believe.
The one in Oregon City by Caritas.
Where?
It's right up by the community college. I don't have the exact address on
Okay.
in my paperwork.
In this budget, are there the additional 4 FTE that were hired in anticipation of the Metro bond?
Yes.
And what line item is that, and how much is that?
For just the 4, that would be included in personal services. I don't have the total number of those 4 individuals on the
Well,
top of my
I
head.
think I need to know what that number is. You need to pull that out.
Okay.
Martha? Martha?
So my understanding is the money is rolling in successfully with the sticks and bricks piece of this, correct?
Hey, Martha, I can't hear you.
I said the money is coming in as anticipated with the building, bonding for structures. That isn't an issue. The issue is the notion of the other piece with wraparound services in terms of when those dollars are allocated. Am I correct in?
Yes, you're correct. We've seen no kind of stall in the bond, the actual affordable housing development bond.
Okay. So we will still have the units. That's what I wanted to clarify.
Well, I know, but nobody knows who's on first or what's what. We cannot get any clarification. I appreciate, Jill, your staff, thinking this money is going to come in, but I just cannot prove a budget for Clackamas County residents with the assumption that of something that's not going to be realized. Last week we heard that this money wasn't even going to be allocated until July 1st of 2022 because the collections weren't coming in fast enough. Now we're hearing, the end of this year or this fiscal year. So, look, we're going to have to take our time on this. We're going to have to figure out what's going on. I'm going to give my auditor, Jody, another call to see what she found out with this. And so what I'm going to do, we are not going to pass this budget today. Gary, you're going to have to figure out when we are going to do it. If we do it, I'm serious about that.
Required by law to approve it by June 30th, or we'll have to cease the function of the Housing Authority. So that's a decision you'll have to make as a board. I'm not suggesting that, but you do have till June 30th, so we don't have to do it today.
Right, Chair?
Yes, Paul.
Yeah, in all fairness, I'm not sure what's going on here, so but it seems practical from a budget standpoint that we should get in firm writing from Metro what the forecast is when we get it. We can't budget otherwise.
We did receive a memo from them with the forecast just last week. Actually, they sent it right to Elizabeth.
But the problem is, this is the issue I have.
Do I have a copy of that?
Yes,
Yeah,
you do.
Paul.
I sent it to you, Commissioners.
This is the issue I have. They're promising us money and telling us that we need to gear up. And, you said we have 34 staff. We're eventually going to have to gear up to 70. Well, who's paying for that? We cannot extend ourselves on a promise that what might happen from Metro when we know for a fact that these tax collections are not coming in, and we need to start thinking that way. This meeting is adjourned.